Today on the patio, we're making a smoked barbecue meatloaf. It's gonna be delicious. Let's get into it. What's up, barbecue fans? Welcome back to the patio. My name's Jake, and today we're doing a smoked barbecue meatloaf, and I think it's gonna be pretty darn good. It's been a while since I've made one of these. I think the last video I did was right when I first started, about 3 years ago, and I think I may have made 1 or 2 since. So today is the day, but today is a special one. Last time I made a meatloaf, I kind of said that was 1.0. Today we're going the extra mile and we're grinding our own meat. So this is actually a combination of brisket, chuck roast, and some short ribs. So I think it's gonna be pretty good. I mean, I've got some high expectations. Only time will tell. But let's talk about grinding that meat first. So first off, what we did is we got a Costco prime grade brisket that was about 17 pounds and gave that a pretty good trimming. Now, if you're making your own ground meat, it is gonna be way, way better, let me tell you. But the first time I ever did this, when I used brisket, I didn't really trim very much, and it ended up being like what felt to be like 30-70, like it was pretty fatty. So since then I've been doing a little bit more of an aggressive trim, and because I'm making this hamburger meat myself, I'm cutting off all the stuff I don't want, right? The oxidized meat, I don't want that. You could eat it if you really want. I don't personally want that in my hamburger meat. I'm spending the money to buy some prime and some better quality meat, so I'm gonna make some high quality hamburger meat. So I gave this a pretty good trim. We cut it down, and every little piece I kind of sliced off a little bit of fat. It had a thick fat cap on it, cut out that decal fat, and once we had that all in the chunks and broken down, I threw it in the freezer for about 35 minutes. Then we got out our chuck roast and we cut this into slices. Let me tell you, like, look at that. That is some like crazy marbling. So we know that we've got some great fat in there, gonna have some good flavor. Cut all that up. And then finally, I've got some short rib that I got from my butcher, and all the fat caps have been removed from it. It's just good, high quality meat. So I cut all that up, and then we got our grinder out. So the big thing to remember here is that you want all the metal parts for your grinder to go in the freezer, right? Everything that touches that meat, you want it to be ice cold so that your meat stays below 40. So our meat's frozen, our metal parts are frozen. We brought that out, and what I'm using here is the coarse die, right? It's a 10 millimeter die. It's gonna be coarse. I'm just trying to get everything ground the first time. So we put our grinder together and we put all our meat through. What I did here is I alternated between some brisket, flat and point, and then we used some chuck, then we used some short rib, and I kind of mixed it through as I was grinding it all up on our first pass. Then what we did is we mixed up all the meat, make sure we try and spread out all the different types of meat as best as we can. And then what I did is I took it apart and I put in the finer die, which is about, I'm gonna say it's probably a 6 mil. And we ran it through one more time. This is kind of your traditional hamburger meat size. Ran it through and gave it another mix up a little bit, and then we started to vac pack. So one thing here is that if you have a chamber vac, it makes it so much easier, right? You can see I'm putting all the meat into these thin bags, and what happens, I just fold up the lip there so that I can put the meat in there, and then I can fold them or unfold them, and then I just keep all the meat, anything that touches the surface, on the inside of the bags, right? Just to help keep things clean. Then I took everything downstairs and vac packed it. I made a bunch of 1.5 pound packages, and I made some 3 pound packages. We have one right here, and the rest I just threw in the freezer. So I did the math on here, and it ended up to be around $7.50 to $7.75 per pound, which, if you think about, we're using a prime brisket, we're using super high quality chuck, and some high quality short rib. So this meat that we're grinding up is far better than you're gonna get in the grocery store. It's gonna have a way better taste to it, and it's a high quality ground beef. If you've got the time or you've ever thought about doing this, I highly recommend it, because when you try the hamburger, there is a big difference in the quality, right? So I've got one here. We're gonna use this to make our meatloaf here. This is 2.7 pounds, 2.75 pounds. We're gonna put some gloves on here because I'm gonna mix this all up. First, we need some onion. Now, the big thing about onion here is you don't want to chop it too coarse, right? You want it to be able to break down a little bit. So we're gonna do a little bit of a finer chop. Let me swap sides so you can actually see on the camera. But we're basically gonna it in like so. A little more difficult to do with gloves on. So we're gonna put this in here. Now the one thing, normally you would put an egg in here. For about 3 pounds, you probably go 2 eggs and maybe half a cup of breadcrumbs. But right before I started filming, I went in to get my eggs and they weren't there. So didn't put that in the grocery cart at the store. So we're gonna make them without eggs, which is fine. Eggs kind of help hold the form a little bit, but because we're gonna smoke this, it will be just fine. And so we're gonna take some garlic powder here, some onion powder, and we're just gonna give this a good sprinkle. I mean, it's probably a teaspoon. This is just some dried parsley, totally optional. It'll just give some color, a little bit of brightness, maybe a tablespoon of that. This is Diamond Crystal Kosher salt. So this we're gonna do closer to maybe 3/4 of a tablespoon. Get out a pepper can in here. Need some fresh cracked pepper in there, and we're probably gonna do the same, about 3/4 of a tablespoon. And we have that already. Maybe one more. Perfect. The other thing we're going to do is we're going to use some ketchup, but not just any ketchup. This has an S on it. What's that mean, folks? That means that this is smoked ketchup. I made this in a video. I want to say it's my Hamburger 2.0 video. I'll link it up here. But if you've never had smoked ketchup, it is phenomenal. Something that you didn't know that you need in your life, that you need in your life. So I'm going to say that's probably half a cup. Right? The one thing that we need here is some Worcestershire sauce, because I put that on all my beef. So let me grab that and we'll put some of that in here. Just so happens I've got some W sauce here, not sponsored, but if you like Worcestershire sauce, this is the bomb. One of my subscribers turned me on to this stuff a year ago or something like that, and I mean, it is friggin' good. You know what? I think we need 2 tablespoons of that. There we go. Because it is like really good. Anyone I've showed it to has loved it. So we're gonna get this ready here. The one thing we're gonna do, we're gonna use a bread loaf, or in this case, it's a meatloaf pan, right? So I've got this thing where you can put the meat in there and the oil drains out, or the fat. But what we're gonna do is we are going to, especially since we don't have eggs, although I would do this anyhow, we're gonna pack it in here to make sure it's nice and tight. And then that way we'll be able to pull it out easily. There we go. Kind of like those things you use to pull the batteries out. We're gonna do the same thing here. So I'm gonna put my gloves on here. We'll mix this up and we'll pack it into our pan here. Now you don't want to overwork your meat, because then what'll happen is it's just gonna get firm and not very enjoyable texture-wise. So give it a good mix. Put this, I'm gonna pack it pretty good here. We'll leave that like so for just a minute. So about 30 minutes ago, came outside, we fired up the Yoder, we put in some Bear Mountain bourbon barbecue pellets there. We're gonna use these for a change. We're gonna add a little bit different flavor profile to our meatloaf. We turned up the Yoder to 250 and it's rocking at 250 now. The other thing that we're gonna do is we're gonna use some Bear Mountain wood chips here. So you guys know that I like to use my pellet tube here a little bit from time to time, depending on what I'm cooking. But traditionally, a lot of times you guys see me use pellets. And several people have commented recently saying, hey, you should try some wood chips on them because it actually tastes better. So that's what we're doing today. We're not gonna use a ton. I'm kind of combining some smoke flavors here. I'm gonna use some cherry. Cherry and beef go together quite well. And it's just something different other than your, hickory or mesquite or oak or something like that. We're gonna fire this guy up real quick. And I'm using about, I don't know, not even 1/4 of a tube. We're not gonna put a ton of smoke from this in there. I just wanna have a little bit different flavor. And just like pellets, you gotta let these light up for a little while. The one thing here is that when you go to Home Depot or whatever, you can get a blue tank or a yellow tank. The yellow tanks are actually hotter, so I don't think they cost so much more. Grab one of those guys. Just makes this process go a little quicker. But the one thing you want to do here is you want to let that burn for a minute or two. just to get everything ignited. If you don't do that, what'll happen is you will just burn out. And then all of a sudden you'll come out an hour later and your pellets won't be burning, and no one wants that. In this case, it'll be wood chips. So it's been a couple of minutes here. We're gonna blow this out. Harder to blow out than I expected. That's interesting. There's still a tiny bit of a flame in there. I think we're gonna leave it alone. I don't need to pass it on camera from trying to blow that out. I think once we close it up, it'll put out that flame. And what we're gonna do here is I've got a little bit of a, this is the cooling racks that I love to use for different things, dry brine or whatnot. The grates are a little dirty, and I don't want that on the bottom of my meatloaf. What we'll do here is we'll just grab this, we'll turn this upside down, like so. Take that off. And we got a nicely shaped meatloaf. So we're gonna let that roll for about 2 hours. Then I'm gonna check the temperature and I might turn it up. We'll see where we're at temperature wise. But for right now, we've got nothing to do for at least 2 hours. Maybe have a sip of my rum and coke. Cheers, and that's about it. All right, so I may or may not have gotten distracted by a pizza video on the Komodo Joe, but it's actually been 3 hours. Oh, I still got flour on me. I didn't want to change my shirt mid-video. I thought that would have been weird, but you got to deal with flour on me. Anyhow, we are at, what are we at here? We're at 152 now. So we need to make a little bit of a glaze. I am going to dial up the Yoder to 350 real quick, just so we can get it heated up. I want to get the glaze heated up, and then I want to paint it on, and I want to do it relatively quickly because we're already at 152. So what we're going to do here is we're going to take, there's 2 tablespoons of brown sugar, some apple cider vinegar here. I was going to use barbecue sauce, but I got the smoked ketchup, and I was like, you know what, we're going to make up something super quick. I'm going to say that's about a 1/4 cup of apple cider vinegar. We'll throw in some garlic and some onion powder, some ketchup. It's about a cup there. Let's see how much we got. The other thing is, I'm also be honest with you right now, I realized a critical mistake I made in this whole process. I should have sprayed that cooling rack. So this guy is gonna stick. I can already see it starting to separate because I didn't have the eggs. Should have went to the store. This looks pretty good. I think we're gonna add just a little bit more. Oh man, it smells good. Smoked ketchup, I can't stress it enough. You need it in your life. If you don't have that, you can just use regular ketchup. And probably, I'm gonna say 1.25 cups is what I'm up to. I think that's pretty good. What I wanna do here is I wanna put this on the Yoder and just warm it up. So we're gonna put this right over the firebox here. That's gonna help warm that up pretty quickly. What I'm trying to do is I'm trying to break down the sugar. And once it breaks down into that sauce, it'll thicken up just a little bit, probably like 5 or 7 minutes tops. Well, I was trying to resist bringing out the light, but the sunlight's leaving us too quick. Let's have a look and see how we're doing here. I think we're in pretty good shape. Might be a little runnier than I wanted, but. So what we're gonna do now is we're gonna let that tack up for about 10 minutes. That should bring us right around that 160 mark, and we're good. Real quick, the one thing I learned on this cook is these guys, wood chips, burn pretty darn quickly. Unlike pellets where you use that whole tube and I can get like 4 or 5 hours out of it, I use the half tube and I fill it up twice to get an hour and a half of smoke. So just some input there. We'll see how it tastes flavor-wise, but you do go through a lot more quicker, just so you know. All right, so it's been about 10 minutes. Let's pull this guy off. Tell me that doesn't look good. Definitely gotta let it cool off. You might be wondering what the pizza peel's doing here. I have a feeling when it comes time to remove this guy, I'm gonna need a big flat surface. either that or it's just gonna come apart on me. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna let this rest here for maybe 5 or 10 minutes, just so it comes down in temperature. Then we'll try and get it off this rack and give it a taste. So it's been about 6-7 minutes. We're gonna try and get this off this cookie cooling sheet. Let's see if this will work. Oh, look at that. Who's the smartest guy around? I mean, it's almost like I planned it that way. It worked out pretty darn good. I'll tell you what, it smells delicious. I'm gonna cut a piece off here from the end. I had to go and take my thumbnail shot in advance because I was worried it was just gonna crumble apart, which it is doing a little bit because we don't have any of that egg, but look at the smoke ring on there. Looking pretty good. Man, I should have brought out some of that sauce for dipping. Wow, that is phenomenal. Wow, I was really not expecting that. That smoked ketchup with the vinegar in there and the brown sugar gives it a really, really nice taste on the outside of it, but that light, bourbon's got like a light flavor to it. But when you mix that with the cherry, the combination is quite tasty. The smoked ketchup puts it over the edge. And I mean, look, it's super good quality meat. After making this right now, I'm thinking to myself, I don't make this nearly enough, and I'll have to make some more of this soon. One of the things I'm going to be doing this spring is I'm going to be teaching my wife how to use the Yoder, and I think I might teach her how to make this because this was friggin' delicious. So hopefully you got some value out of the video. If you did, please give it a thumbs up. Don't forget to subscribe while you're down there. Thanks as always for watching. I'll see you soon. Who needs a side when you got this stuff? Man, friggin' delicious. Bravo.